My father's champagne glass caught the afternoon sun as he lifted it high, smiling like he was about to announce something historic. Madison's backyard looked perfect, pink decorations, matching outfits, a dessert table arranged like a brand deal. My sister stood in the center of it all, glowing in a designer maternity dress, wiping fake tears like she was filming a commercial. And I stood just a few steps away holding my 7-month-old daughter, Isabella, my father's first grandchild, the baby he had never met. Not once. Dad's voice trembled with emotion as he made his toast. He talked about finally becoming a grandfather, about how long he'd waited, about toys he'd been collecting and bedtime stories he couldn't wait to read. People clapped. A few relatives dabbed their eyes. Derek, Madison's husband, recorded the whole thing on his phone like it was Madison's big moment. Carlos, my husband, stood beside me so tense he looked like he was holding himself together by force. He'd seen my family's favoritism for years, but today felt different. Because today my daughter was being erased in real time. Madison kept shooting me little looks, small smirks she tried to hide behind happy tears. She wasn't even subtle. She wanted me to feel it. This isn't your life. This is mine. And the ugly truth is it wasn't new. Growing up, Madison got the big gifts. The praise. The attention. 16, she got a car. I got a speech about learning to work. Her college was paid for. I took loans I'm still paying. Her wedding looked like a magazine spread. Dad spent a fortune. Carlos and I had a small backyard ceremony, and Dad called it charmingly modest, like I should be grateful he didn't laugh. But today wasn't about money. Today was about my child. Dad warmed up to his speech, getting more dramatic as people leaned in. He even described a nursery he'd set up in his house. A nursery. The same thing I tried to tell him about when Isabella was born. Back then, whenever I called, he was busy. Whenever I asked to visit, he had plans. Whenever I tried to schedule anything, it was always soon. And standing there listening to him talk about how long he'd waited, I finally understood. He hadn't been too busy. He'd been kept away. Then Dad turned toward me with that familiar smile, sweet on the surface, sharp underneath. He raised his glass in my direction and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "So Olivia, when is it going to be your turn to make me a grandfather?" The backyard went dead quiet. Carlos's hand tightened around mine. And Isabella, like she could feel the tension, blew a loud raspberry and sprayed carrot mush onto my dress. A nervous laugh rolled through the crowd. Madison's mouth twitched like she was trying not to enjoy it. I could have done what I always did, smile, shrug it off, swallow it. But something snapped. Maybe it was the way Dad said it, like my life hadn't happened. Maybe it was the way Madison watched me like she'd won. Or maybe it was Isabella's tiny hand gripping my thumb like I was her whole world. My voice came out calm, clear, steady. "It was my turn 7 months ago," I said. "When Isabella was born." Dad blinked like he didn't understand the words. I kept going. "I invited you to the hospital. I invited you to her coming home party. I invited you to her christening. I sent pictures, announcements, everything." I shifted Isabella higher on my hip. "You never came." Dad's champagne tipped slightly, spilling onto his shoes. He didn't even notice. For the first time, I saw confusion crack through his confidence. Madison moved instantly, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Oh my God, Olivia." She laughed, soft and sweet. "Don't do this. Dad, she's being dramatic." Then she faced the crowd, wide-eyed, innocent. "She never sent any invitations," Madison said. "She makes things up when she wants attention." A few people murmured. That's what Madison did best. She didn't just deny you. She rewrote you. Made you sound unstable, emotional, unreliable. But here's what she didn't know. I wasn't guessing anymore. Because the truth didn't start at this party. It started 10 months earlier when I was 3 months pregnant and I told Madison first. We were at one of her favorite overpriced cafes, the kind where she always insisted on meeting, knowing I'd pay anyway just to avoid looking difficult. I told her I was pregnant. Her reaction was perfect, too perfect. She squealed, hugged me, teared up and said, "Let me tell Dad. I'll make it special." And I believed her. After that, weird things began happening. Family dinners happened without me, always on nights I supposedly couldn't make it. Dad's birthday celebration changed dates and I found out after. Country club brunches became Madison. Only because she told everyone I was too tired from pregnancy. Then she offered to plan my baby shower. Pinterest board. Group chat. RSVP list. The whole show. But every proposed date fell apart. Dad was suddenly busy. Relatives had last-minute conflicts. Kept getting postponed. Madison acted exhausted by it, like she was trying so hard for me. Carlos noticed the patterns before I did. He always does. He pointed out how Madison always positioned herself as the messenger, always controlling who knew what, when. And then Isabella was born. And Dad still didn't show. No visit. No call. No let me hold her. Just silence. If you're still watching, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, because the next part is where I stopped feeling confused and started collecting proof. Because I didn't just suspect Madison anymore. I found the first piece of evidence by accident, and it proved my daughter had been thrown away like trash. The first real proof didn't come from a dramatic confrontation. It came from a trash can. 6 weeks after Isabella was born, I stopped by Madison's house unannounced. I had just left the pediatrician. I was exhausted, running on 2 hours of sleep, and I told myself maybe if I showed up in person I could finally fix whatever invisible wall had been built between me and Dad. Madison wasn't home. Her housekeeper, Maria, let me in to wait. Maria always smiled at me like I was an actual human being, not background noise. I sat in Madison's office, rocking Isabella gently, trying to convince myself I wasn't about to cry for no reason. Then I noticed the trash can. It was overflowing with paper, envelopes, glossy prints, shredded cardboard. I don't even know why I walked over. Habit, maybe. I've always been the kind of person who cleans up messes that aren't mine. I pressed the trash down and saw it. A pink envelope with tiny footprints. Isabella's coming home invitation. Unopened. Right on top. My stomach dropped. I pulled it out. Under it, another envelope. The hospital announcement. Then the christening invite. Then the printed photos I'd mailed for Dad's office. All of them. Every single one. Thrown away. Not forgotten. Not misplaced. Deliberately discarded. My hands started shaking so hard I nearly dropped my phone while taking pictures. Because in that moment the story Madison had been telling everyone, that I was distant, emotional, unreliable, collapsed. This wasn't miscommunication. This was sabotage. She hadn't just ignored my daughter. She'd made sure my father never even knew she existed. And once I saw that, everything else started lining up like dominoes. A week later at a family barbecue, Derek casually mentioned how nice it was that Madison was selling some old jewelry to help fund their nursery. He even showed me photos on his phone, asking if I thought the prices looked fair. The second I saw the ring, my blood went cold. Grandma Rose's Art Deco engagement ring, worth around $30,000. Listed online for $3,000. That ring wasn't just jewelry. It was the centerpiece of Grandma's entire collection, the collection that, according to her will, would go to the first granddaughter who had a daughter, Isabella, which meant it was mine now. Except Madison had already been selling pieces for months. The emerald brooch, the pearl strand, the diamond bracelet Grandma wore at every family wedding. One by one, disappearing into online listings while Madison told Dad, I wasn't interested in old-fashioned things. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the memories. Grandma used to let me sit at her vanity and hold each piece while she told me the story behind it. Madison knew that. She knew exactly what those items meant to me, which is probably why she took them. And if you're listening right now and you're already thinking I would have exploded, comment below what you would have done. As I didn't explode. I went quiet. Quiet enough to start digging. Carlos's cousin Miguel was a software engineer with too much curiosity and not enough patience for nonsense. When we told him what was happening, he didn't hesitate. He just said, "Give me a week." He needed 3 days. Deleted emails surfaced first, messages Madison had sent to relatives saying I needed space and didn't want gatherings. Then fake social media accounts pretending to be me, posting about how overwhelmed I was, how I wanted distance from family. Then came the work emails. Anonymous tips to my boss suggesting I planned to quit after the baby. Hints that I wasn't committed enough for promotion. The typing style matched Madison perfectly, same punctuation quirks, same phrasing, same rhythm. The promotion I'd lost suddenly made sense. She hadn't just erased me from family life. She'd been shrinking my professional life too. Meanwhile, Isabella said her first clear word. It wasn't Mama. It wasn't Dada. It was Pop Pop. The name I'd been teaching her for the grandfather who had never met her. I recorded it. I watched that clip 100 times. Every time it felt like joy and heartbreak wrapped together. My daughter calling out for someone who didn't even know she existed. That video became more than a memory. It became motivation. Then came the group chat. I found out by accident during one of Isabella's fevers. I was exhausted, scared, trying to reach Dad for advice, and Madison casually mentioned he was at his cabin with no service. Except Derek slipped and said they'd just been texting him in the family group chat. Family group chat. 40+ members. 2 years of messages I had never seen. With Miguel's help, I finally accessed it. Hundreds of messages about Madison's pregnancy journey. Ultrasound photos. Nursery ideas. Name discussions. Celebration planning. During the exact months I was actually pregnant, actually throwing up every morning alone, actually waiting for my father to call. Dad had asked about me exactly 3 times. Each time Madison answered for me. She's busy. She needs space. She doesn't want attention. A full narrative had been built where I was the distant one, the cold one, the difficult sister. And Madison was the hero trying to include me. That was the turning point. Not the jewelry. Not the emails. Not even the trash can. The turning point was realizing Madison hadn't just lied once. She'd constructed an entire alternate reality where I didn't exist the way I actually did. And the only way to break a false story that big wasn't another conversation. It was exposure. Carlos and I sat at the kitchen table that night, Isabella asleep between us in her bassinet. Evidence spread across the table like puzzle pieces. Photos, screenshots, videos, listings, messages. For the first time I wasn't confused. I wasn't emotional. I wasn't doubting myself. I was certain. Madison had spent years controlling the narrative. Now it was time to control the truth. And the perfect moment to reveal it was already on the calendar. The day of Madison's baby celebration arrived wrapped in fake sunshine and forced smiles. Pink balloons everywhere. Gold ribbons. A dessert table that looked like it belonged in a wedding magazine. She had hired a photographer, a videographer, even a live stream setup for her followers. She thought she was documenting her perfect day. She had no idea she was recording her own collapse. I showed up early with Carlos and Isabella. Calm. Polite. Smiling just enough to look normal. Inside, my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might shake the ground beneath me. Madison floated around greeting guests, hugging people, laughing too loudly. Every few minutes she glanced at me, making sure I was watching her shine. I was. Just not for the reason she thought. When the speeches started, Dad stood up again with that same champagne glass. The same tone. The same emotion. He thanked Madison for finally making him a grandfather. That was our cue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I simply stepped forward and said, "Dad, you already are one." The silence hit harder than any shout ever could. Madison laughed nervously, tried to brush it off. "Olivia's joking," she said quickly. "You know how she is." Then Isabella reached out from my arms, grabbed Dad's tie, and said clearly, "Pop Pop." The sound of it cut straight through the air. Dad froze. His face shifted from confusion to recognition to something like pain. Real pain. The kind that comes when truth finally finds you. Madison started talking fast, too fast. Excuses. Jokes. Deflections. She tried to redirect attention like she always did. That's when Patricia stepped forward and placed the photo album into Dad's hands. Hospital pictures. Birth date. Timestamps. Isabella's first smile. First bath. First steps assisted by Carlos's hands. 7 months of life. 7 months Dad had never seen. While he flipped through those pages with shaking fingers, the outdoor screen behind him lit up. Miguel had set everything to autoplay. Doorbell footage of Madison taking mail from our house. Screenshots of messages telling relatives I needed space. Online listings of Grandma's jewelry. Side-by-side comparisons of recipes. Her own voice. Her own words. Her own face. The crowd gasped. Some people covered their mouths. Others stared at Madison like they were seeing her for the first time. She tried everything, crying, blaming hormones, claiming deepfakes, even pretending she felt faint. But every excuse fell apart the second another piece of proof appeared. Dad didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just looked at her and asked one word. Why? And Madison, cornered by her own lies, said the quiet part out loud. She said she'd always felt second, that she was tired of sharing attention, that it wasn't fair. Not one person in that backyard nodded, because everyone there had watched me work twice as hard for half the recognition my entire life. Dad walked over slowly and held out his arms. I handed him Isabella. The moment she giggled and grabbed his nose, he broke. Completely. Tears, apologies, promises, years of missed time crashing down all at once. And if you're enjoying this story right now, give it a like, it really helps the channel. Because what happened next changed our entire family forever. Madison's guests began slipping away. Her followers in the live chat turned from admiration to shock. Her carefully built image crumbled in real time. No screaming. No dramatic slap. Just truth played out on a big screen. 5 months later, the world looked different. Dad shows up to Isabella's birthdays 3 hours early just to help decorate. He calls every morning.